Yes, I think I was doing a master's. In what? Okay. Yeah, so it's really good too, so you have to like do it 2 years.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here in our beautiful Jim Moran building for the Women's Entrepreneurship, the impact and pathways on the region and society of our very special women entrepreneurs and the men who support them. The Jim Moran mission statement, inspiring innovation, instilling compassion and igniting an entrepreneurial mindset in the next generation of leaders. We hope that our school that is 2 years old is continuing to do that. We're very, very excited about fostering women entrepreneurs and men, and to help them to grow in their business. Let me tell you a little bit about the history of the Jim Moran School of Entrepreneurship here at Florida State University. We were the first public university to have a school of entrepreneurship outside a college of business. The Jim Moran School started its classes in the fall of 2017. And you can see from this slide, unless I'm blocking some of it, that we have grown quite a bit from our very first time when we started with just 2 degree programs in commercial and social entrepreneurship. In 2018, we were so fortunate to get a retail entrepreneurship program and faculty, and to add to our 3rd undergraduate program. And then in the fall of 2021, we're going to add STEM entrepreneurship, but our STEM classes have already started. So there isn't another program in the country that is offering 4 different undergraduate focus areas in entrepreneurship. We're also very excited this fall to be able to offer graduate programs. Florida State University is a Research One university, and so graduate programs in research are very important to us. Our first graduate program is in textile and apparel entrepreneurship, and we're very, very excited about that, focusing on textile testing and quality assurance. In the fall of 2020, we're going to start 2 more graduate programs. Master's program in hospitality and entrepreneurship, because we know the explosive growth of boutique hotels all over the world, and also product development and entrepreneurship for those undergraduate students who graduated with a bachelor's degree and may have always been thinking about a product that they wanted to develop. We can help them in the master's degree. So we're very excited that within a few short years, we have a very substantial undergraduate program and a very growing graduate program. Eventually, we hope to have PhD programs as well. But we'll take a couple years to do that. So some recent accomplishments is that last year in January, we won the Emerging Programs Award from USOSPI, a national organization of entrepreneurship educators and practitioners, and we were excited about that. And then just a short time ago, 2 of our very wonderful staff people, Caitlin is one, and Kirsten went to Copenhagen. They took that terrible, burden on themselves. Stockholm, sorry. It's over there. And it was cold. So they actually worked on presentations for us, and we won the Interdisciplinary Entrepreneurship Award. Only one in international award. So we won it. So we're very, very excited about that. But today we're more excited about our guest speakers. And I don't want to take any more time from them, so I would like to just read a short introduction about each of our panelists, and then I'll let each of them give some opening remarks, and then we'll open it up to questions if that's okay with you. So our very first panelist, we're very... So is getting her mic fixed. But I will talk to you about her. So Ursula Dudley Oglesby is the president of Dudley Beauty Corporation, LLC. And she's a well-respected business leader and humanitarian. As a part of a second generation of Dudley, she has catapulted the Dudley Company and Dudley brand and skyrocketed. Ursula Oglesby is responsible for developing and executing all of the company's long-term growth strategies, launching new brand initiatives, recruiting to the top players for the company, recruiting top players for the company, and really defining Dudley as a premier beauty company for the multicultural market. Upon graduation from Harvard Law School and admittance into the North Carolina State Bar in 1991, she doesn't look that old. Ursula became the General Counsel, Director of Customer Service. From 1993 until 2003, she ascended to senior level positions with Dudley's product marketing group. Dudley Cosmetology University in sales, where she oversaw research, development, marketing research, and strategic planning. In 2003, Ursula became the Chief Operating Officer of Dudley Products Incorporated, which entailed overseeing manufacturing, accounting, MIS, legal, and human resources. In 2008, Ursula became President and CEO of Dudley Beauty Corporation, LLC, to continue the legacy of her parents, Joe and Eunice Dudley. I think we ought to just applaud her right now. Okay, we're going to give her just a second to relax while I talk about Mr. Gordon Hester. Gordon has been involved in the Direct Selling Association for almost 30 years. Again, he is well known in the industry for playing a large part in helping build one of the largest global distributions in the history of the industry, with sales of more than $8 billion and an organization of 100,000 distributors in over 25 countries. For over a decade, Gordon has worked as an industry consultant for various companies, overseeing global modernization initiatives for Juice Plus Company, one of the top 20 largest direct selling companies in the DSA. Recently serving as an interim CEO for a startup company, he built the company's infrastructure rapidly within 4 months and grew the sales team to 4,000 distributors in less than 2 months. Today, Gordon remains closely involved in the industry as both a consultant and a strategist. In addition to serving on the DSA Research Committee, Gordon is a speaker for the Direct Selling Education Foundation. Perhaps his most enjoyable role is serving on the advisory board for Wake Forest University Entrepreneurial Program. Good for you, pat on the back, where he passionately works with students while taking a lead role in building their mentorship program. In the fall of 2018, Gordon anticipates releasing his book about the force driving the future of the direct selling industry. To find out more about Gordon's business and consulting, we can go to his website. So let's give him a hand. So we will have opening remarks first from Ursula.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. It truly is my pleasure to be with you all tonight. To be in beautiful Florida. It was a gorgeous day. Yesterday a little hot, but very nice and a beautiful day today. To be sitting on this panel as part of Women Entrepreneurship Week really means a lot to me. Especially in the African American community, the first Black millionaire that we're aware of was a woman, Madam C.J. Walker. And we are products of the hard work that she put in many, many years ago selling hair care products. My parents started Dudley Products and the Dudley brand in 1967. And I was just a year old at the time, and they were selling Fuller products. Not Fuller Brush, but it's a different company, Fuller Products, out of Chicago, Illinois. And I had the opportunity and the blessing to grow up in the business. As you heard, doing a little bit of everything from when I was a child, putting caps on the products. My parents made products in the kitchen, and then would fill the products, and my brother and I at the time would put the caps on. My mother would type the labels, and my father would go sell by day. So that was my first experience with the products, and I've been doing a little bit of everything ever since. And it's truly been a lesson. I'm still learning. When you're an entrepreneur, you never stop learning. You continue to learn no matter what. We truly have had the opportunity to have some heavyweights in our industry. I know that Cheryl couldn't be with us today, but I know that she's got a lot of support with the Mary Kay group there, looking fantastic. And I wanted to say to them, and one of the biggest highlights of my life was meeting Mary Kay before she passed away, because she was such an inspiration to all of us women as to what can be done when you put your mind to it and have the support and determination. So again, I'm excited to be here celebrating Women's Entrepreneurship Week.
Thank you. I keep sitting aside people who graduate from Harvard. I feel so inferior. So my name is Hester. I was like all of you at one point a student. My degree's in accounting from a small university, Wilmington University in Delaware. You went there?
No, I lived there for 13 years.
Oh, excellent. Welcome. I'm glad to see another Delaware person. When I originally kind of came out of school, recognized that the whole traditional path wasn't really the path for me. Kind of wanted to control my own destiny. I moved into consulting out of 5 years of work with Touche Ross. Found my way to direct selling a little over 30 years ago. Met a guy that was 22 years old, really successful. I remember pulling up a little nice Mercedes. Like, what in the world do you do? And kind of just really curious and started learning about direct selling. Started in the industry as a distributor. I rose to the top level of that company in 5 months. Eventually started building some other businesses back to the consulting. Was approached by the gentleman I mentioned to come in and run his businesses and to be a partner with him, which I did for 25 years. So it was like being, I call it an entrepreneurial market, where I got all the mindset and values of being an entrepreneur, but without the risk. It was almost the perfect world for me. That was when we came together and built one of the largest direct selling distributorships in the history of the industry, one of the top 3. It's now we're 10 billion in sales, over 100,000 distributors in over 30 countries, and over 100 million in commissions. So we were pretty successful at that part of things. In the process of that, I retired in April 2016. And if you're an entrepreneur, you start recognizing retirement as sort of a concept and not something you do. And so I started thinking about going back to work the day after I retired. And because I didn't know what else to do with my time, and I still wanted to make an impact on the world. And 4 days later, I was approached by the Juice Plus company about coming in and overseeing their global modernization. And I was like, well, this could be fun, changing things up. And I'm always big about future thinking. I believe that you have to be innovative. You always have to stay in a stage of growth. So it was a fun thing to take part of. Did that, still work as a consultant for them, but in the meantime, I started doing consulting for other direct selling companies. What didn't get mentioned is I have my own technology company too. It's not that big, there's 24 of us right now. I suspect it will be close to 100 by the end of 2020, so growing quickly, about 30% a month. But a lot of the work I do on the corporate side is in what I would call cultural transformation, taking this industry that is proven and meaningful and figuring out how to ensure it has a better future. So a lot of that can be on the operations side of the business, a lot can be on the revenue side of the business, just depends where I get pulled. Tech and data has become part of everything, so that world keeps coming into play. But recently, when I got involved with the Direct Selling Association, with the research committee, and with the DSEF, with their academic initiative that now has 223 academic fellows. They created a position for me as an industry liaison, so I get to work with all the academics. And to be honest with you, my excitement about that was I did the distributor side, I've done the corporate side, now I want to help the industry evolve. This is an industry that I've seen change people's lives, not only as customers, but also as entrepreneurs. And I know, like everything, it has to evolve, so I'm trying to be a voice in that innovation. The book that you mentioned is about that. It's called Position Right, The Forces Shaping the Future of Direct Selling and Network Marketing. Wrote it for only one reason, to be a voice for change and to ensure that this thing that we call direct selling is going to have even a better future, although it's had a pretty amazing past, as I'll share in a little bit later. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. My wife's family are all Florida State graduates. So it's a connection to the school. When I pulled up to the hotel, I have a Wake Forest license plate. And the guy's like, you might want to park that car somewhere else. And Of course I didn't, but so if I got scratches on my car key, I get it. But it's a pleasure to be here. I've always been a fan of Florida State, and excited to spend some time with all of you in the next couple days.
Great, thank you so much. All right, question and answer. Can you speak into the mic? We're going to have a little mic set up here, and that's because we're recording it, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. What mic is, where is it?
It's coming.
Okay.
It's on its way. Thank you so much.
So we're gonna get out of our chair, I guess, unless, can you pass this around? It's not gonna have a chair.
Be thinking of your questions. I mean, I have questions too I can ask, but.
So, okay. Ursula, already you showed some professionalism. You said y'all. And down here, that's part of our native language. Our football coach saw that. And professional adapts and adjusts, so that's good.
Yeah.
Where do you see with technology, this is good. The technology explosion we're having? You know, AI, blockchain, 5G, virtual reality, augmented reality, all these others fall into the Internet of Things. How that's going to go with what you're doing?
So I think it's a great question. I think what's happening with AI, what's happening with technology is really helping us to move things a lot faster. I don't think it's going to replace the personal relationship because there's nothing like the touch of a person. There's nothing like seeing someone smile, even if it's through Zoom or something like that. So I think that technology has been wonderful for us to be much more efficient with what we do, but I don't think it's going to replace the personal relationship that we have, because I think that's what makes us human, as everyone says, as you watch some of these movies where robots take over and all that good stuff, that's what's going to make the difference. Hopefully that answers your question. Gordon might give a
little follow-up.
Well, yeah.
So I've been doing it in sales 40 years as well, and generally it's in front of people. And now we're transitioning into a technical situation where there's going to be almost like remote. A few years ago, we had software that you could do, instead of companies flying everybody in for meetings, they could be remotely, and we had them be avatars. They could go down the data itself, walk around on the data, go up above it like an eagle. It's kind of neat stuff, and the technology is just flying around. So what do you see as the biggest challenge or opportunity with keeping all these tight connections, but yet, keeping the personal touch too? It's kind of a fine line, it seems, a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a balance, between the two, because, too much technology is a problem. Because, I know oftentimes we all call somewhere and you get press 1, press 2, press 3, and you're like, oh my God, can I just talk to a regular person? You're pressing 0. They're like, I'm sorry, that's not an option. Let me press 9. Will that get to it? Agent, kick me to someone. So it is a delicate balance that we as companies have to make sure that we're providing technology so that people can get information that they want faster, but still having that personal touch. I'm going to actually ask Gordon to say a few words about it, since he's into technology much more than I am.
Yeah, certainly living in the technology space with my company, not only are we involved in sort of all aspects of technology with direct selling, but we do AI, we do blockchain, we do virtual reality. My team loves to build games, so they're gamers, so it's all kind of interesting. But for me, technology is an enhancement tool. It will never replace what direct selling is. Direct selling works because it's people to people. What technology does is it brings efficiency to things, whether it's to make an e-commerce platform work, to make an enterprise system work better, to have a back office that better supports the distributors, bring in new technologies for training. Like, for instance, I saw recently, this is an industry that's big on developing people. We're like school. And personal development is really big, as is business development. It's starting to be financial development too. I recently saw a company, their entire training and development is run on a virtual campus. And they come in and you go in front of a virtual avatar, a room like this, you start talking, you ask questions, the avatars talk back to you. And this company has built a massive, successful company around a new technology. it doesn't change the fact that you're still developing people. It's just a different way to do things. So I think all those things are important. AI is going to change the way things are done. It's already doing that. Blockchain to me is all about privacy, the idea of separating servers so that you can protect things better. Virtual reality, I think, has a little bit of work ahead of it until they can solve the goggles problem. But augmented reality is huge. So like one of the things we recently did, our businesses run off of, generally, if you don't have tech in-house, you have outside vendors, and these enterprise systems like an Easygo or by design, and one of the most common e-commerce platforms that people want to use is Shopify. Well, the problem is Shopify didn't talk to these things, so we had to go in and figure out how to make that work, which we were able to do. And Shopify has a lot of these technologies. You know, if you want to use AR, you can do that. And these platforms that are everywhere. If you've ever been involved in tech, I can tell you the most confusing part is trying to keep up with all these platforms and systems and languages. It can be one of the most confusing parts of things. I'm not a tech guy, I'm a business guy. But at the end of the day, I think tech changes everything. You know, our industry has always been very intuitive based. So we make decisions off of the experiences we have. Today, technology is playing a bigger part in all facets, and so is big data. You know, data is coming in and changing how we do things in the industry. So I see tech as an accelerator. I think if we get it right, I think we're a little bit behind some of the things I see in other industries. I think it's going to be really good for the future of our industry.
I always remember George Jetson said in a cartoon, these 3-day, 4-hour work weeks are killing it. And we're getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Is there another question from the audience?
There's
Or
a
from
question
Twitter,
from Twitter.
please. Yeah.
So, how did you guys become involved with DSCF?
Okay.
Which one to start?
Sure. So my parents became members of the Direct Selling Association back in the late 60s. So they've been a part of the organization for a very long time. And growing up in the organization, growing up in Dudley, of course I wanted to go to the Direct Selling Association annual meetings. And so that's how, at the annual meetings, Direct Selling Education Foundation, the SCF, is a part of the meetings as well, and you see what's going on. There's always a special session explaining what's going on with the SCF. So that was always interesting. And then really, they just asked me. They said, okay, Ursula, would you come and speak to students? Sure. So I've spoken at UNCG, University of North Carolina, Greensboro. My son is actually is a senior, getting a degree in entrepreneurship in Spanish. And I'm on the entrepreneurship board there at UNCG. I've spoken at Fayetteville State University for DSCF programs, and then back at UNCG again, and I think I've spoken somewhere else, I can't remember, and now I'm here. So, I enjoy doing this because oftentimes in school, you don't have the opportunity to hear from direct sales associations. Oftentimes you just think that the only opportunity out there is to get a job. And there's nothing wrong with having a job. But let's also make sure that we're informing you and educating you of all the different possibilities out there as well. Because being an entrepreneur is very, rewarding. It's a lot of work. It's not simple. It's not easy. It's not always fun, but oftentimes it can be. So that's how I got involved. They just asked, and I said yes.
I would say I'm more begged than asked. I kind of recognize that the academic community was something that could add a lot of value into the evolution of our industry. There's many bright people that have skills and insights that we don't necessarily have. And I also knew the other part of it for me was that the students that we talked to now over, how many have we spoken to so far?
Last count was about 70,000.
So about 70,000 students. We understand in the U.S. that the average age of a direct selling distributor is about 46.3 years old. So we recognize to ensure a better future, we have to begin to educate. Thank you. We have to begin to, it still sounds the same to me. You want me to speak louder or?
Oh, your louder got turned off.
Okay. Not the first time I've been turned off, by the way. So we also recognize that it is important for us to educate the next generation of leaders for our industry, as it is for any industry. So we're very vested into going to schools, spending times with students, and why is it the tech guy always has the tech problems?
This one seems to be
Here, why don't you
working.
take this one and then swap them out unless we ask them.
So we want to spend time with the students because, to be honest with you, we find that most students are not really educated on what direct selling is. And more important, if they are educated on it, it's liable to be some type of a myth or a misperception about what we really are. So kind of a classic example is, I will hear people say, oh, you're one of those illegal pyramid schemes. That's the common, I'm sure if I ask how many people have heard that, and without going into all the legality and of that stuff, I mean, this is an industry that does about $200 billion a year in sales, with 120 million entrepreneurs in over 170 countries. Just put your common sense hat on and say, would that be possible if it was an illegal pyramid? You know, of course it isn't. Matter of fact, the DSA has been the advocates for fighting all the battles to ensure that we have a future in this industry, and they're constantly fighting those battles, as is other industries. So the DSEF was something I wanted to be a part of. As I said, I'm here to make an impact. That's sort of my last focus. And I knew with the DSEF I could get positioned to help the industry and spend time with the academics. I'm an avid learner, so I love spending time with people that value education.
Thank you so much. Great answers. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so I was wondering, I know you mentioned that learning is always part of the process. So what are some of the most salient things that you've both learned over your many decades in the industry?
Okay, I'll start. The first thing I've learned is don't give up. Things are not always going to turn out the way that you want. So I have this saying, I say, you know, you have plan A, plan B, plan C, on down, and when that doesn't work, you go plan A1, A2, A3, you know, just keep going, you know, so you just don't give up. When this one doesn't work, you say, okay, what did I learn from this? And try something else. You say, okay, well, this one didn't work. Okay, well, let me try something else. Oh, this worked. Okay, how can I put more towards that? You know, so you just don't give up. And part of the reason why you don't give up is because you remember what the mission is. You remember why you got into it in the first place. You know, for us in our company, you know, we sell hair care products and cosmetics, but we do that because for us, we believe that, and we sell, part of our company is we sell directly to beauty salons and barbershops. We don't sell to stores or anything like that. And part of the reason for that is that in the African American community especially, the only businesses we have left as a whole are beauty salons and barbershops. Okay, so for us, we want to help change the economic base of our communities. So that's why we have products that are sold, that are made by us, sold through us, to us, and we create entrepreneurs along the way. So we have people that we call distributors who sell products to those beauty salons. Well, what happens is those beauty salons are able to stay in business because they don't have to cover up their products. They don't have to worry about showing, you know, that they're using Dudley products, and that customer can only come to them to get those products, okay? So what happens is helping build that entrepreneur as well. So for us, and for me, it's about that mission of building entrepreneurs and changing the economic base of our communities. So when things don't go as planned, then I remember that and I say I can't give up, you know, because what I'm doing is helping someone else in the process. So that's the biggest lessons I've learned is don't give up, no matter how dark things may be. And let me tell you, sometimes they are very dark. You know, when you're trying to make a payroll, when, you know, this government agency is looking at you. We had a fire that was a short one, it was a 30-second flash fire, but it almost put us out of business. You know, when you have those sorts of things happen to you, and we had great insurance and all that good stuff, and, you know, but the insurance check comes in and it's only $6,000. And you got over $180,000 in bills. Then you're like, that's when you got to dig deep and remember what you're in this for, and what you're doing it for, and to say, I'm not going to give up, I'm not going to quit, no matter what.
Wow, great. Thank you. Yes, Gordon?
I guess for me, first and foremost, mindset. I believe that the entrepreneurial mindset is the secret sauce that allows you to do anything, whether you have your own business or you work for somebody else. I've worked with, as a matter of fact, I worked with a young man that got his PhD in finance from Florida State. The mom always sends him to me. And the mom sent him and said he really wants to know how to succeed. And I recognized something I learned early in my business career, that society programs us for compliance, not success. So I needed to change his mindset. I needed to program him differently. And especially around relationships and some of the things that really mattered in business. And have been really successful doing that in my career, not only for myself, but for a lot of other people. So mindset is everything, and to me that's really about standards and beliefs more than anything else. The second is this industry gave me immense skills, because one of my mentors taught me all business is about the pursuit of solving a higher quality problem. The reality was business always gave me a new problem to solve, and I love solving problems. It was my path to grow. Some you don't want, like kind of a quick story to give you an example of a problem. When we started Juice Plus, we needed a spokesman for Juice Plus. This was back in 1993. We're like, who's the perfect corporate spokesman for Juice Plus? Who would you think that would be? The Juice, O.J. Simpson. So we brought him in, put him on every box we had, put him on all our marketing materials, had him at the conference 3 months before all that stuff went down with him. And you start to, we always say, I'm sorry, what was your problem again? So I think high quality problems, I think skills to me, it taught me the value of communication, it taught me the value of problem solving. It gave me so many intrinsic skills, the ability to manage time, the ability to manage relationships, things that I didn't learn anywhere else. And I think sometimes that's the thing people don't really understand about direct selling. It's what you learn in it that really amplifies all levels of your life. Not just when you're in it, but afterwards. And there's actually studies on this that we have done. So for me, it has been like a PhD class that never ended. And today, I'm learning more than I've ever had, because the world's changing more. I'm having problems that I never had to solve before, which I find really exciting. There's one word of advice I tell you: if you want to be successful in life, fall in love with solving problems, because I think that's what life is, whether it's in business or outside of business. And I did, and I still do. And you know, at 57 years old, I'm more driven now. I feel like my value in the marketplace is better. Why? Because I stay in the game. I'm always strengthening my mindset. I'm always learning new skills and new problems to solve.
Thank you so much. Yes, another question.
How do you go about strengthening your mindset and changing your mindset?
So for me, I think, as it says, it's constant learning. You know, I belong to a couple of different organizations that have helped me, and they're peer groups that are part of business peer groups, and as well as being a part of the Direct Selling Association. You know, one of the great things about being a part of DSA is that you are surrounded by other companies just like you. You know, the Mary Kay Juice Company. I mean, you know, the list goes on and on. There's so many different types of companies. And the positive part about that is, at these meetings, everybody's willing to share. I've got this problem, can you help me? Oh, sure, I can help you, because I have that. That's what helps, you know, strengthen my mindset, is being associating myself with other like-minded people, you know, people who are doing better than I am. So what are you doing? How did you get there? You know, can you help me? Oh, sure, I'm happy to help you. You know, that makes a big difference. And of course, you know, constantly reading as well, you know, makes a difference.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, to me, mindset is about standards and beliefs. So beliefs, just so you understand it, all our brains work the same way. We focus on something, and then our brain goes, what does it mean? So we focus and we give meaning to things. The meaning we give to things are our conclusions, and that builds our belief system. So at all times when I'm looking at what I would call limiting belief, looking at something that's going on in my thinking that's not producing the result I want, what I try to pay attention to is, what am I focused on? How do I shift my focus? As strange as it sounds, a lot of times that's just asking a better question, or focusing on what you can control versus letting something you can't control kind of determine your future, and then giving it a more empowering meaning. So I've always believed the only thing you really control in life is the programming of your mind. And if you know how to do that, and you're always looking to improve, you can really build this amazing entrepreneurial mindset that can serve anything. The second is standards. So I believe standards ultimately determine everybody's destiny, and there were 4 for me that I really paid attention to in life. The pursuit of abundance, the pursuit of excellence. So the pursuit of abundance was important because when I didn't have it, I would get in a comfort zone. And I always considered a comfort zone a slow death, not a place where I wanted to live. I wanted to grow, I wanted to have impact. So I sought abundance in everything. The other was excellence. That's the growth component for me. And the third was work ethic. I've learned over the years how to work smart, but I always worked hard. I'm not one of those people that believes you can get ahead in life without working hard. Just how I was raised, and I still find to this day. I don't want to say I can outwork anybody, but I feel like I can compete, especially at my age. And then the last one is impact. And I think when you understand, so this is the interesting thing about standard. If I was to say, okay, let's talk about impact, how would you judge your standard around impact? If you told me it was outstanding, I would tell you that it's one level lower in results. Your results would be great, but not outstanding. The only way you have standards serve you is if they become part of who you are. So anybody that would ever talk to me would tell you, boy, when we talk about abundance, that's Gordon. When we talk about excellence, that's Gordon. These standards are part of who I am. And I find the stronger they are, the more they impact everything in my world. Where a lot of times we teach about goals, and I don't want to deter the value of goals, but I will tell you standards will take you a lot farther than goals. And you'll notice one interesting thing about standards. You can never fulfill them. There's never a place where you can't have more abundance, is what you pointed out. For me growing up, I just wanted to be wealthy. Now it's all about impact. So I think if you really want to be successful at mindset, learn to get rid of the limiting beliefs and learn to raise those 4 standards, and I think you can pretty much do anything in life.
Great. I may ask a question. You've mentioned it a little bit about personnel. Direct selling, you have to depend on other people. You're working with other people. And that's probably the hardest thing for entrepreneurs, is to depend on others. You can depend on yourself. You can set the high standards for yourself, but when you're hiring other people, what do you look for in them that have you found successful?
For me, I think what separates the good from the great, and looking for people is really their values. And I think it goes back to what Gordon is saying about standards. Because people, of course, experience, all that's nice and fine, but when you've got 2 people or 3 people who have the same experience, then what's going to separate one from the other is going to be the values. Do their values align with what you're looking for, with what you want? Because if their values don't, and they've got all the great experience in the world, they're not going to be a good fit for you. For me, I've got to have people around me that I can trust. I've got to have people around me that will work as hard as I do. For me, I'm one of those leaders that you'll see me working just as much as everybody else, because I don't expect you to do anything that I wouldn't do. I'm one of those. I'm not one of those, presidents and CEOs that sits in my office and just looks around. I can't do that. I'm walking around. What's going on here? What's going on there? What do I need to do here? What do I need to do there? Let me think about the next thing. I think all of that is critical in looking for people. Is what is their value system? What is it that is important to them? And if those things align with the organization, then that's somebody that I want to hire.
Excellent. Gordon?
Yeah, it's certainly the world of recruiting entrepreneurs versus hiring people is very different. I have a lot more control in hiring. If I don't like somebody, I can get rid of them. If they don't do what's necessary, I can get rid of them. In direct selling, we sort of inherit anybody that wants to chase whatever that dream is for them in this industry. And to be honest with you, we I would say recruit a lot of what I would call entrepreneurs. People that talk about their why and talk about changing their life, and then you look at their work ethic and how inconsistent it is, and you're like, wow, they don't align for me. So there's a lot of motivating and developing in the entrepreneurial space, and there can be a lot of churn just by the nature of that. But when it comes to team building, to me it's always been three words: will, can, and fit. So will somebody do the job? Can they do the job? And are they a fit? Core values, mission. And what I find is if you don't hold true to those things, what happens is the people in your culture become a cancer to your culture. You start getting things like entitlement and division and drama, and these cancers sort of eat away at culture. And to me, the reason we were so successful in a business is because I always saw this business as a cultural addiction game. How do I get people to stay? Customers and distributors, and to get them engaged. So culture is the differentiator for direct selling. Anybody that was in this space would tell you that's what makes us unique, that's what makes us special, is people coming together around a mission. So I think it just varies depending on what you're taking, but I will tell you in life, this might sound a little harsh, but I always look at people as either the wind behind my back or an anchor around my neck. I have no problem cutting anchors, because ultimately, driving anchors slows down my ability to help all the people that I can help. So I think you gotta be careful not to get caught up in the wrong relationships, or to try to have some confirmation bias or justify things that aren't right in your world. So we're very much aligned, and mission drives everything, and culture is a big part of that.
And surrounding yourself with positive people and not those who are negative. Great. Other questions from the audience? I know there's some other. Yes, ma'am. Do you mind coming up to that? We have it again. Yes. Thank you. It's right here in the center. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. You guys are fantastic. What is a book, of like one or two books that each of you would recommend, especially for those of us who are entrepreneurs, we need to get fed in the ways you talked about, but also just books. So what's a good one? One or two, if you don't mind.
Sure. So Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, one of my favorites. I read it for, my father had a program where we read for 6 hours a week, 6 hours in a day, every week. And I did that for I think a year. And when you read, you don't read to highlight. You read, and as you think of ideas, you write that down. Okay. So that was fantastic. And then one of the other books that of course I can't think of right now. So I'm going to pass it to Gordon.
Who wrote it?
Napoleon Hill.
The other
The other one. I can't think of that either. But it's the four something I can't think of.
Four agreements?
The Four Agreements. Yes, you all know it. I love that book. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Everybody knows it. Great. The Four Agreements.
So who wrote it? Sorry, I don't know.
I don't remember who wrote it.
Noel.
But if you put it in the Four Agreements, you'll find it. It's fantastic. A fantastic book to live by.
That's fantastic.
Okay, go ahead, Gordon.
I'm a bit of an avid reader, so I'm always learning from reading, but I would say my two favorite books, and they were probably my favorites because they were important to what I wanted to accomplish in my life. One was a book called Fulfillment by Dr. Martin Seligman. He is the father of positive psychology, so his story is he had a little granddaughter. He was the head of the APA, very traditional psychology. His granddaughter asked him in the garden one day, "Why are you studying all the bad parts of the brain and not the good parts?" And he's like, "Wow, that's a great question." And it spurred this thing called positive psychology. So Fulfillment was a book on happiness. And to me, success without fulfillment is failure. Happiness really mattered to me, so I wanted to understand the science of it. And that book was the science of it. And he is the architect of all things positive psychology, which is something that was really useful to me in the business world. The second was called The Power of Full Engagement by Dr. Jim Loehr, Loehr. This was written back in the 90s. He still is a peak performance expert. And people would come to him that were the best at what they do, trying to figure out how to get better. And what he realized is to get better, you have to manage 4 energy cycles: physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And this book was what happened when you don't manage those properly. So time management is everything to me, because time's the one resource we all kind of have to deal with. So when I read this book, I'm high on the mental part. I'm always working and grinding. And I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna kill myself if I don't change this. Just starting to see the consequences of it. And what it taught me to do was to run my life in 2-hour sprints. So, for instance, if I'm working hard, I'll go hard for 2 hours and then I'll take a break and go take a walk or just listen to music, whatever fills up those other things. So the interesting part of that story was when I read that book, that's where my whole financial picture changed. It literally had that big of an impact, and I think everybody thinks of time management as an allocation of time. I see it as properly managing these energy cycles, and this book was a huge wake-up call to me.
The name one more time. I was busy writing Dr. Lore.
The Power of Full Engagement.
Great, thank you.
Great questions.
Good. Any other questions? Don't be shy. Good, thank you.
I have 1,000, but I'll wait till.
I'm enjoying this. Thank you both so much. So I have a question regarding the financial part about entrepreneurship. So I think in terms of taking the leap of faith, as you all both have kind of spoke on, can you speak on when the finances or resources are not there? Like, what do you suggest? And I only ask this because I think one level of advice I got before was about bartering. And I'm a full-time cosmetologist, so I own and operate my own hair salon. And just in that, I've learned that trying to track my going out and my coming in terms of my the finances, but what are some things and ways without having to take out loans that you all could speak on or recommend in terms of building, you know, my continual business?
So I can speak for hours. Since we don't have hours, I'll just say just a few quick things. Okay, so you know, first as an entrepreneur, you've got to decide. I mean, you got to have skin in the game, of course, right? And you got to decide how bad do you really want it, whatever it is. Okay. So for me, you know, oftentimes people think that I inherited the company. No, I bought the company. Okay. So my parents sold it to me. Okay. And I'm still paying for it. Okay. All right. So it is not, you know, one of those situations. And for me, in order to do that, I told you all we had to fire and that sort of thing. So for me, I really had to look and say, you know, do I really want this? And if I want it, what am I willing to do? You know, I had some people, some consultants who were working with us, and they said, oh, Ursula, don't worry, we'll loan you the money, that sort of thing. Well, I said, okay, great. But then they told me they wanted a percentage of my company. I don't think so. So that's when I had to decide what I was willing to do. And so first thing I did was I cashed in my 401k. Okay? And then I talked to my husband, he cashed in his 401k. Then, you know, from there, I got on the phone and you humble yourself. I called my Harvard friends. Hey, Harvard friend, how are you? I'd like to borrow some money. I said, sure, we're happy to loan you some money. But in order to do that, you'll need to put up your house. So I talked to my husband. I said, hey, guess what? They're going to give me some money, but we need to put up the house. He said, no problem. We put up the house, paid their money back, and everything was fine. So you just got to decide what you're willing to do to make it happen. I understand that you don't necessarily want to take out a loan, then you're going to have to sell your way to get the money that you need. And you have to figure out what's your timetable, you know, for what you want to accomplish, and based upon your timetable will determine, you know, what you're and what you're willing to do to determine how you're going to get there and what it's going to take to get there. So there are lots of opportunities, there's lots of options, but you got to decide those two things first.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, other questions?
Just address that really quickly. if I
Yes,
can.
please. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
Please,
all good.
yes, yes, yes.
First of all, congratulations on having your own business. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Do you love it?
I do.
Excellent.
I left corporate communications to pursue it full time, so.
Very nice.
Very good.
So when it comes to resources, I remember one of the lessons my mentors taught me, the greatest resource is resourcefulness. Sometimes you have to get really creative. You know, Ursula gave an example of friends and family, people you know. So never discount the value of networking to find resources. Equally, there's traditional ways, there's networking, there's bootstrapping, there's selling ways. If there's one constant ground I have with the kids I work at Wake, is they got bigger ideas than they do wallets. And it's like, how do we solve this problem? And you start looking at their business model and giving them options and trying to be smart about how they ideate a business and all the systems and processes around that. How you go out and do customer discovery validation and then scale from there, which is always the more expensive part of things. So I think it's just being resourceful. And what I would tell you is, if you want to be resourceful, remember the power of visibility. Okay, you're a brand. And if you're out in the marketplace and people see you, and they believe in you, they believe in what you're doing, they believe in your mission, anything becomes possible. So much of what I've done is through visibility. And equally, I can look at, like, direct selling is a good example. I scaled my technology company, as I said, there's only 24 of us now, but I scaled that company with $10,000. And most people would tell you that's not even possible. It is, because I used an affiliate model. By the way, something I learned from direct selling, this idea of an independent contractor entrepreneurial model, I call entrepreneurial crowdsourcing, to be able to do this. And it went really, really well. You might be familiar with two other distributors that did this with a company, Uber. The two founders of Uber were direct selling distributors. They were Cutco distributors. So sometimes you want to get positioned in models. You want to look at different business models, whether it's direct selling, maybe it's licensing around the product. There's just all kinds of different options. But my advice was network, get visible, make sure you're in the right business model for you, and just be resourceful.
Excellent, thank you so much. One last question, yes? Kathy?
Yeah.
You want to go to the mic?
Oh, sure.
Thank you both so much for being here. Just a quick question, if you thought if there was any specific mistakes that you think entrepreneurs make or that keep them stuck or struggling in your
I think the first mistake, as it relates to failure, I don't think they fail fast enough. I've never been an entrepreneur that didn't have failures. The problem is they never took them out of the gate. They stayed true, they learned, the only failure was the one they didn't learn from, or that they stayed in too long. So they get that confirmation bias and stay into that. Failure is a big part of things. You fail fast, you learn from your lessons. But ultimately, I never saw failure as anything but a motivation. It's back to the mindset issue. And can you remind me of the other part of your question really quick?
It was just if there were any specific things that entrepreneurs you think that they do that.
Yes. Okay, so first and foremost to me is they spend too much money in ideation. So you look at the amount of time they spend planning to start something, and just crazy how much thinking and planning goes into that, and they get lost in the complexity of that. So part of what I've always done with the younger kids that I work with and entrepreneurs is to shrink ideation. How do I get to an MVP, a minimum viable product, that I can then go out, this is mistake number 2, you have to do customer discovery and customer validation. Assumptions are not customer discovery and customer validation. So I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs get in trouble because they think what they have is what everybody else has. And if you can do those things right, and you're smart about who you bring around you, so that's the other big piece for me. Whose part of your world is going to have a big part in how your world looks. So kind of like one of the rules in startups is the first 15 people that you bring in will ultimately determine the success or failure of your business. I found that to be very, very true. When you have good people, great things happen, especially if you're a leader, they can give ownership. So, okay, here's my outcome, you run with it. Micromanaging doesn't work, especially with entrepreneurial people. We value autonomy. So get the right people, make sure you don't get buried in ideation, make sure you do customer discovery and validation to know you have a valid business model, then you can scale and do really amazing things.
Ursula, did you want to ask?
I mean, I think we said it all. There are so many things. I think that, one of the most important things is not believing in yourself. I think that, and going out and getting other people, so understanding that you are not Superman or Superwoman, and say, okay, this is what I'm good at. Now let me find other people who are good at the things that I'm not good at. thinking that you can do all things, and you can do a lot, but let's see if you can get help from other people who can do those other things. And it's not that you have to pay those people necessarily in the beginning because you don't have the money, but find other resources, as he said earlier, to help you. I can tell you one of the things that I'm doing is we used to do manufacturing before I took over, but I really didn't like manufacturing. I'm like, I don't like that side of the business. That's not fun. I like talking to people, that sort of thing. Well, I've decided now I'm going to go back to the manufacturing business. What do I know about manufacturing? Enough to be dangerous. Okay, so and to make a lot of mistakes. So what did I do? I talked to a lot of people. Hey, I'm thinking about going to manufacturing. What do you think about that? Do you have any suggestions? Do you have any ideas? And people started putting me in touch with all sorts of different people to help. And there's a group that's affiliated with the state of North Carolina who is basically, he's a person who works with manufacturing companies, and he did that for many years. He retired from that. He works for the state, and he works for free. So I don't have to pay anything, and he helps me. I just pick up the phone, I email, I have this problem, I have that question, and he's right there to help me. So there are lots of resources out there, I think as Gordon talked about earlier, but you gotta be visible, you gotta talk to people, you gotta ask, because you never know who is out there that can help you with whatever it is that you want to get help with.
Can I mention one more thing real quick?
Yes, please.
Maybe one of the most important. If you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you got to live on the revenue side of the business, not get buried on the operations side. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs that get buried in admin and operations and all things of accounting and legal, so much that they focus nothing on revenue generation. And ultimately, you can have the greatest operation in the world. If you're not bringing in money, it's not really going to matter. You're just going to fail. So I think learning to focus on the revenue side, learning to get good at sales, those types of things really make a difference for young entrepreneurs.
Great.
I'm going to add one last thing to that, and that's something that I like to say, and that's profit is a pretty little word. So just remember that. Profit is a pretty little word. Not, let me just do all these wonderful things, and then there's no profit at the bottom.
Right. I love it. Great to end up on. And let's give them a hand. Let's also give a huge thank you. This would not have been possible without the Direct Selling Education Foundation. So please. Thank you. And so we're going to break now. There's still, I think, some beverages out there if you'd like to talk individually. But you were fabulous. I learned so much. So terrific. Thank you very much. Thank you.